Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. We bellied up to the bar here on July 15th. Before we get too far, I got to say happy birthday, one of my favorite Marines, a kid I put in the Marine Corps many, many moons ago, Rick Miles. And it's very fitting that I would say happy birthday to Rick Miles today, who after he got out of the Marine Corps was I think he was an officer in PA, and he did all kinds of things. So why not have somebody come in and explain to Rick what it was like to be an actual officer who actually did some stuff in an actual city that actually had things going on. So to talk to us today about, some ethical leadership under pressure and what those things look like all the way out on the far, far left coast. And you all know about me in the left coast, all the way out there. Joining us today, and I probably should always, and I always forget this, I always forget to bring my media up. This is one of my always big mistakes. So let's make sure we get this all taken care of because he deserves every bit of this. So joining us all the way out in California is Mr. Raymond E. Foster. I always forget to bring my
Thank you.
up. Do you like Ray or Raymond? I keep calling you Raymond, but which one do you prefer?
I prefer Raymond. A Ray is a drop of golden sun that doesn't fit.
I get it completely. Get it completely. So we're going to be talking, like I said, about ethical leadership and under pressure. So before we get too far into all those kind of things, though, let's start here with taking care of the important stuff. So over my right shoulder, it's the big board for sticker and a cause. If you got something you believe in, something you're supporting, something you want other folks to know about. Oh, look, you already got people jumping in for you there, right? Derek, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Derek, but yeah, Raymond Eugene Foster. He knows your whole, good Lord, he knew your whole government name. Uh, he's supposed to use my whole government name, but over my shoulders, a big board for sticker and a cause. If you got something you believe in, something you're supporting, something you want other people to know about, you can reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok. I'll tell you where to send it. Our website is theabovethebarpodcast.com. Our email is theabovethebarpodcast@gmail.com. Send me out what you got going on. I'll read about you. Just like our last one, Timber Creek Speedway, we put them up on the big board. I'll let you know where to send that sticker to, and we'll read all about you. This is how we support each other around here. Next thing is we got to talk about the people that pay the bills around here, and that's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson, Coxsackie, Schoharie, Clifton Park, and Delmar, North America's largest custom window treatment company. They're handling everything from blinds, shades, shutters, drapery, even do window tint. I've never seen a window they couldn't cover, so make sure you're giving them a call. And for the month of July, it is 25% off of all motorized window treatments. So if you got something big and you're trying to motorize it, or you're just like me, and you like the idea of technology that you can just sit there and tell your smart device, and they're always listening, about raising and lowering your shades. They can do all that stuff for you. And as always, folks, if you tell them that you're there to belly up to the bar, they're going to give you another 5% off your entire order. So make sure you're reaching out to Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson, Coxsackie, Schoharie, and Delmar, North America's largest custom window treatment company. All right, there, Mr. Raymond. It's all done. All the bills are paid. How are you today, good sir?
Excellent, brother. How about yourself?
Any better, it would be illegal.
Yep, I'd have to split in two if I got any better.
That's it. I love it. See, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one. People always ask me how I'm doing. I tell them I'm stupendous, and they just smile at it. And I tell them it's the only word I found that if you say it to people, just tell everybody tomorrow. Tell them that you're feeling stupendous. You'll feel better because you got to smile when you say it, and they'll smile right back at you. I promise that will happen. So, getting into a little bit of your background before we get too far, and if you guys are watching us live here, make sure you're giving a like, share, follow. Those of you I appreciate you over on Instagram real quick. You can drop questions in here. I can answer those. Raymond can answer those questions live here on the air. But if I, correct me if I'm wrong on all this. So, lieutenant in the Coast Guard. So,
no, it's lieutenant of the police department.
Oh, lieutenant of police. So, how far did you make it in the Coast Guard then?
Oh, I said, man, that was an E4. I was basically I scraped barnacles off the boat.
Were you bosun's mate?
No, I was actually, they sent me to radium in school and taught me the valuable skill of Morse code back
Okay.
in the late 70s. Yeah.
The
I was a
listen,
radium in third class.
how many times do you watch movies when they're typing things out like Morse code and trying to determine if they're
Uh-huh.
really doing it right or not? Do you ever do that?
Well, absolutely. There's a British police show called Morse,
Okay.
and they if you listen to the theme of the music, it starts out in the Morse code uh, is his they're beeping out his name Morse. It's da 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 dit 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 dit. Only a goofball would know that.
Hey, listen, someday that goofball skill, when the grid go if the grid ever goes down or any of those things, you might be one of the last of us to actually be able to communicate with anybody. So I get that completely. Oh, look at my girl over here from my Amtrak days. Throw a text in here, hello, my dear. So, so you were, so you were a lieutenant. I mean, that's got to be crazy. I mean, I'm going to start with that. Being a lieutenant in the LA Police Department. What when you were there, like any particular division? Just normal patrols. Like what did you do over there?
Well, I've started to write about that a little bit on one of my blogs, and I've actually started at the beginning of my career. And I joined the Los Angeles Police Department in April of 1980. So it was the late 70s going in the early 80s, a very transition time in policing. And so, really, the last of what I would call old school policing. I mean, when we left the police academy, you had a revolver, and you actually carried 20 cents in your ammunition pouch to make a phone call because you didn't have a radio, and 30 inches of hickory,
Uh,
which was the baton. And that was it. And so
wow.
policing was considerably different. And of course, over the 25 years that I was there, transition, I spent 9 years in patrol, and then 10 years as a sergeant and 4 or 5 years as a lieutenant. So pretty much the patrol experience was my ballywick.
So I mean, so not nothing like I mean, God. So 1980 out there. So you really saw even the transition of Los Angeles. I mean, you saw what we make movies about today, the epidemics of crack out there, and truly some pressure situations as people were going from, you know, oh, here comes the police. We're smoking weed on the front steps to neighborhoods completely destroyed by that stuff. You really saw some true pressure.
Sure, and well, that's not the when we talk about leadership. That's not the pressure I'm going to talk about, except maybe as
Okay.
a metaphor. But also to understand that time, you're absolutely right. When I worked Southwest Division in the early '80s, there was a homicide every night. That's it. There's going to be a homicide, 3 or 4 shootings. I remember my last night in 77th Division. I was the watch commander, and right out of the gate, I was on my way to an officer-involved shooting, and then there was a triple homicide over the other side of the division. Then there was another pursuit and a shooting. And so,
Wow.
but here's the difference that all goes away really rapidly. And what changes the nature of violence is not policing or the law, it's technology. Because as soon as pagers and then cell phones, drug dealing switched from defending territory to customer based. So you didn't need violence to defend your crack house any longer because somebody could call you, you could deliver it, and you could cut the violence out. And so the drug dealing didn't go away; it just went different, and the violence was an unnecessary component to the service industry at that time. And so I saw that transition, and that's by the way, one of the first academic papers I wrote was defending space.
Now, I mean, this is probably somebody's going to say I'm out of my mind here in a second, but I've always felt that from a entrepreneurial side, and what they kind of did it out here in New York when they legalized marijuana out here. They said that, and I disagreed with some of it, but they said the first licenses all were going to uh, people who had been locked up for marijuana related crime, or that whose lives have been changed. Like, so if I was if I was selling weed and went to jail for 20 years and my kids were at home, they had the right to the early license. But they're some of the best and wisest entrepreneurs. You just said it. why are we killing each other when really all we're doing is trying to serve a client base? And listen, folks, I'm not defending drug dealers. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying
No, no, we're not doing
there's a
that. Yeah.
I'm not doing that, but there is a business mindset to that says, why are we trying to murderize each other when we can just let's just deliver this stuff. This is what we have a what is it, supply and demand situation. It's interesting the way you put that. So
But that
in
also
all
brings up for the title of this, it demonstrates the pressure. We don't, when we think about pressure, it's not, I'm not talking about leadership when there's an emergency. That's obviously probably pretty
right.
simple, really, when you think about it. Pressure is, I'm friends with somebody. Pressure is financial situations. Pressure is
Okay.
outside forces that are acting on the decision making process that you got to try to um, real in some days minimize and mitigate, and other times you got to work through it. So that's the kind of pressure that bends ethical decision making.
Well, let's get into that then. And let's start with the fact that what drove you to think like, hey, I probably have something in here that what was it in your life that said, hey, I faced fill in the blank and had to make those decisions, and here's how I approached it, and I should write about it.
Well, actually, the first book I wrote was pretty much by accident, but the second one, there's a story too. I was sitting in a coffee room, and we had just hired another professor at this university, and he was a retired police captain, so we had lots to talk about. And so we were talking about leadership, and I said, "Well, let me tell you something, Andrew. Everything I know about leadership, I learned playing five card stud." And he looked at me and he go, "Yeah, they give you five employees. You can't throw them back. You can't ask for new ones. Those are the ones you got to work with, right?" And so
That's a
he
great
looks at me and he goes,
analogy.
"I
I
don't like."
love that.
He goes, "It's true though." And he said, "Is there maybe there's a book in here?" And that led to Leadership Texas Hold'em Style. And so a lot of my, right now I'm writing it. A lot of times writing is a way for me to work out stuff that I'm trying to think through. And then it turns out somebody else found that was valuable. One of the things I find is I'll be doing a book signing on Sunday, and people will come up and talk to me, and they'll find something fascinating and some meaning in a passage that I don't even remember writing. Um, as a writer, you have to realize something. The writer only brings about 20% to the experience. The reader brings the other 80%. You bring your imagination, you bring your experiences, you bring your context and interpretation. So as I
Right.
write, what I'm trying to do is engage your 80%. And once I do that, then whatever I write, what you got out of it doesn't matter what I said. It matters what you thought. So
I love that.
that's where I kick off in the writing. Probably that's more than 20 years ago. I began to write a lot.
So then that is, and just so everybody understands, so this has become your entire career field, paid author, the whole nine yards, and doing the books, nothing but. And this is something
Hell
I have a
no, that's
follow up. Okay, screw my
anybody who
next
thinks that's
question then.
crazy.
Screw my next question then. I had a great follow up question for that. That I was like, man, this would be a great follow up question. Never mind. I won't ask my follow up question because I always like when
Okay,
people
so
get off.
so I enlisted in 1975, just after the draft ended. Okay, so but that timeline plates me also when I entered the police department. I'm on the last class of the old pension system, 20 and out with an uncapped COLA. So that's one of the reasons I really looked at that. I mean, I'm going to keep that, seemed to me to be very valuable. After I left the police department, I went to teach at university for about 10 years. There were two different universities I worked at. And I thought about it. I was actually pursuing a PhD at the time. I thought I'll become
Oh, wow.
a professor. And then I got the opportunity to go overseas and become a consultant. And I did that. And so now I just kept writing. So the books that I've written, you're classified as a bestseller if you sell 2,500 copies. That's
Okay.
not a lot of copies.
Well, we have people on here all the time that like publishers. I have a friend of mine, Kristen, who's writing a book, and they bring up a great point. Like it really is the hardest thing. Like it's right up there with writing a song and people listening to it, and because people just don't understand you said how many years? How long does it take you to write a book? I'm just curious.
Oh, well, it will depend on the project. One took 10 years. One took about 6 months. It just depends on the depth of the project and the motivation behind it for me and what I'm working on. And there's different things that go into that. Um, yeah, the thing about writing is if I got anything out of writing, it was tougher skin because you go up on Amazon and look at the reviews. And so, what the book I wrote 20 years ago, there was a brand new review on it. So there's probably 400 reviews. And the person said, I bought a used copy and it was in terrible condition. They gave me 1 star.
Because of the copy they had nothing to do
Yeah,
with you. That's great.
nothing to do with me. Other people will write things, and you're the man in the arena, right? You heard Teddy Roosevelt's "You're the man in the arena," and everybody gets to spit on you, and everybody has a suggestion, and their suggestion is the most important thing in the world to them. And if you don't entertain the suggestion, then there's something wrong with you. And so that's the thing about I become less and less. I become more and more interested in criticism and less offended by it.
I like it.
To me, the guy. It's important that you hear all voices because even somebody stupid, a stop clock is right twice a day. You might as well know, right?
This is absolutely the truth. Well, and let's talk about the title here. Temple Within. You're a Mason. I'm a Mason. You just say 19 years for yourself, 25 years for me. Um, we both have made that journey, and I'm always curious because even on here I've had people pop up and be like, I love seeing all the conspiracy stuff about Masons online. And then when I'm like, dude, I've been a Mason for 25 years, none of that's true. And they're like, that's because you're not at the right level. You're not a 48th degree. I'm like, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. You're not one of these special 98th degree. I'm like, that's a band 98 degrees. This is not what we're talking about. When putting this book together, and even putting yourself out there to put a title like The Temple Within, was there any apprehension as far as using that to start with?
No, well, I didn't know what the book was. I wrote the book. So what happens is I become a master mason, and I never go through the line, I do the officer's line. What I do is I show up on rehearsal nights and I just learn the parts, and then and I'll do anything because I love doing it. I wanted to learn the ritual. And I knew that I wanted to be able to learn it, to be able to inculcate it, to be able to become part of me. I needed to give the ritual. Needed to give the ritual. The price you paid was getting in the officer's line. And one day the guy was going to go from senior deacon to junior warden, bows out. I raise my hand. I can qualify, and I go through the line. And my purpose was solely to do the ritual. That's all I wanted to do because it was so important to me to learn it. Afterwards, I began a course of Masonic education in my lodge. And the first couple of times to do it, it fails miserably. The first time we did, I remember there was golf claps. I remember looking at the guys. I go, they're not getting it because I went way,
Too
what
deep.
we might say, esoteric. Yeah, way too deep. So I retrenched and I thought, well, what can I do? And I thought, well, so much of our ritual comes from the King James Version of the Bible. So many of our men are familiar with the Bible, either culturally or religiously, that I will focus on those. And I took words and I took every word like in the ritual. I followed it through the etymology, where'd the word come from. I began to look at, who the writers were. I began to observe those biblical stories. And so I began to give these lessons, and that led to me doing outlines because even though people will say, well, you're such a great extemporaneous speaker, I mean, I prepared 2 hours for today, right? Um, I would prepare an outline. And then we had a lodge here that asked me to come for a year, every once a month, and do a graduate seminar on all 3 degrees to tear them
Okay.
apart, down to the word obligation. What does it mean? What are the secret
Oh
arts, parts,
wow.
and points? What do these words, what do these things mean technically? And so I ran this graduate seminar and I kept notes and I began to write essays. And then I realized, oh, there's a book coming out here. And so I sat down and I wrote this book. But I had written a book previous to this that sat and so I wanted to. So there's two things that are going on at the same time. This I'm going to tell you how we get to the temple within.
Okay.
So I've always wanted, kind of retiring, and I want to find a different job. I always thought three things were fascinating. I don't know why. One was movie usher. I thought that'd be a great job. The other was
I'm with
trash
you.
truck driver. Yeah, trash truck driver. I always thought, but that's when they used to pick the trash up and slam the cans and all that good stuff. And the third job was cab driver. And I thought, well, cab driver. Well, in 2015, Uber began. And so I thought, I'll do that. And at the end of the first night, I began to collect stories. I ultimately will write a book called Chasing the Surge 10,000 Rides in the American Night. But when the pandemic hits, I stopped driving and I threw my first pass at writing this book, and it's garbage. I'm telling you, Sean, the book was unreadable. So I started it. That's the thing. You edit and you edit and you rewrite and you rewrite. And I would spend hours on sentences. I'm like, this is just unreadable. And so I come up with another version from 100,000 words down to 80,000 words. It's unreadable. So I put that aside, and then I go through the Masonic education. I start to write the Temple Within. I finished the book, and I have 450 pages of 100,000 words, and it's beautiful. My wife has read it. She goes, best writing ever. I love your, this writing is
Oh,
wonderful.
wow.
This is great. This is a wonderful book, but I don't have a title. I have this other book here that I can't finish, and then it dawns on me what the problem with the other book is. And I go, holy crap, I can fix this. You see, when I was a police officer, let me tell you what police officers do. I'm gonna give you a secret now. I'm gonna get a non-Masonic, but a secret. Here's the job of a cop. Everybody that cop meets in his day is going to be in crisis. It's some kind of a crisis. It's either the traffic violator, the victim, the suspect, but most of them have a problem. And you're there to give them a solution to the problem. And once you formulate the solution, they don't like it, you make them do it, right? That's what the police do. We go, we see a problem, we find a solution, and we make you do what we say you're going to do. That's why we use force. Turns out, as an Uber driver, you can't make anybody do anything, right?
No.
So I had to learn a whole new skill set. So the transition was not about the stories, was my transition in the Uber, learning a new set of skills. And then I realized what I was doing was I was building a different temple, and the Temple Within. And I thought, oh, that's when. So as I'm rewriting that Uber book, it dawns on me what the title is. They actually get finished at the same time, and one comes out in August and one comes out in September. I mean, they're right neck and neck, but they worked together because, again, these are about my journey as much as anything else.
I'm going to tell you, I'm also very interested in that in the Uber book. I find that absolutely fascinating. I think it's because I come from the HBO Taxi Cab Confession days. I don't know if you remember that show or not, but that
I
sounds
do.
fascinating to me. I mean, and I also have to respect a lot of what you're saying when you say learning that different skills because we talked earlier, gunnery sergeant Marines. I couldn't when I got out of the Marine Corps. It wasn't you do what I say because my chevron's bigger than yours. We move on. I had to learn to foster those relationships. And again, folks, if you want to know what Raymond has going on, you can look up his book. Temple Within comes out in August. That's the first one that's coming out, right?
No, it's already out. They've both been
Oh,
out for
Temple
about a
Within's
year now.
out. Okay, I thought you were saying Temple Within was coming out. I knew I would. I can't pull my notes up next to me, Raymond, because I put them in the chat, and when I put them in, I just grabbed your entire document and put it in, and now my notes won't pop up. So bear
Oh
with the
my.
guy. I'm sitting there, and I don't want you to think I'm a turd as I'm trying to read them off my phone, and I keep looking over here. So I just was like, you know what? I'll figure it out. We're just gonna go. This is why
So
this is what live radio is like, folks.
that's right.
So,
So
and again,
I've written 9 books.
okay. So, and the most recent two though are the Temple Within and the what's the
Chasing the
what's the
Surge.
Chasing the Surge. So
Yeah,
again,
Chasing
folks,
the
I
Surge,
don't have any of
10,000
my notes.
rides into the American Night.
I have none of my notes. This is how great this is. I have none of my notes, and I'm trying to make this happen. So
That's
again,
okay. We're
folks,
just
but if you
talking.
want, I see this is the best part. Like I told you, it's sitting at the bar and having a conversation. For those of you that are watching us live, if you're curious about either one of Raymond's books, please drop a comment from wherever you're watching us right now. He'll be happy to answer any of your questions. So as you're putting this together, the Temple Within, and helping people to understand what were some of those Masonic values that you pulled from, because I know which ones are coming to mind to me first and foremost. I know which one kind of came to my mind, which was I always think about if I'm going to wear my jewel, I'm letting the world know who I am. So I have to operate at a different level at all times. And it helps me to remember that. But for you, when you were writing this book, to help people to understand those outside pressures that make us make unethical decisions, when you were writing this, what were some of the things that you were using?
Well, I think that, and this is one I like, the Masonic symbolism is a great way to explore different topics. And I've talked about this for Masons. We have the three pillars: wisdom, strength, and beauty. And we often talk about, and we'll tell you that, you need wisdom to build something, strength to be able to do it, and everything you do should be beautiful. But I think there's another lesson there, and that is that um, for our lodge, a lodge ought to be wise enough to have deep education on what the ritual actually means and what we're doing. Strength ought to be finding pathways for participation for men that aren't the officer's line, because that's the weakest pathway of participation. And lastly, beauty is expressing the Masonic values in the community. And so if you take on the idea of your lodge becoming not a center of your community, but a center of the community, and you're expressing the beauty of holiness, the beauty of Freemasonry in your life, I think now you're at, as you say, you're above the bar there on the minimum of Freemasonry, right? Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Oh, you get
So
one of
yeah,
these. This
thank you
this
very
is not going
much.
to work for. It's not going to work for me. There it
That-
goes.
oh, oh
You
my.
got you got to get one of those.
So
Absolutely.
that's I think that's an operating principle for me. We have to understand that as we do represent Freemasonry. If we're going to proclaim, if you're going to wear your ring, if you're going to tell people you're a Mason, you represent all that whole value system and all of those
Absolutely.
men and all the men who've come before you. And that's the same thing. If you put on the uniform, come on. This I just wrote an essay on this, and it was it was a pivotal moment in the military for me. I was in A school, right, and I was learning the Morse code, and a chief called me in, and we were 4 months into the school. I was falling behind, and I was going to get recycled. The class behind me, I was terrified of that. I was like 18 years old, terrified I'm going to get recycled. What a dumbass I was. So the
It's
chief
the
has me.
scariest words we get told. We're like, "You're gonna get recycled to the class behind you." Like, no, it's all over.
That's right.
No one cares.
So there's the East. You probably an E6. I don't know, man. But he's standing there and he goes, "Let me ask you, I have two questions for you, Seaman." I said, "What's that, sir or chief?" And he goes, "Are you doing your best?" I go, "Yes, chief, I am." And he goes, "Are you trying hard?" I go, "Yes, chief, I am." He goes, "That's the problem. Your best ain't shit, and I don't care if you try because we're paying you to do. Right?
I
It's
love
not
it.
your values. It's not your goals. It's our goals. You got to meet our standards." And I realized I was moving from the world of a child to the world of an adult, which is that I have to meet the standards of the organization which I represent. And if you represent those, you've bought those, and you have a responsibility. And trying is for an adult doesn't matter. It's doing what matters. um,
100%.
Nobody's tombstone says he tried hard. I don't know. I guess maybe it does. I don't know.
No, I don't think anyone's does it. He gave it his all, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, it didn't work
No,
out in
no,
the end. That's what I was gonna
yeah,
say.
and I love this out of your book. Freemasonry is a journey inward. The rituals, the symbols, are guides pointing towards the middle chamber within ourselves. And again, folks, if you don't know what the middle chamber is, open your Bible. David will tell you all about the middle chamber and what it was. I'll give you at least that much. So, I mean, I love this fact. So, but when we write, and I think everybody's thoughts on writing are different. We had Kathy Nash on. She's right there in Orange, California, in Orange County. She's another writer we had on, and we talked a little bit about this. That everybody's writing with a purpose, whatever it is for them. What was your ultimate goal then when you put this book together? Like, what were you hoping, other than to get from here to the paper, because you needed to get that message out? But what were you hoping that you would achieve out of this, even if it was for one person?
Well, it's dedicated to my grandchildren.
Okay.
So I was hoping that I was in some way speaking to the future, and that they might get something out of it then. That was one purpose. Um, I was talking to a community member. We just had our Fourth of July celebration here. It went off very well. I was on the planning committee for that, and what she was telling me was that nobody understood your vision for it, but when it happened, it was great. And I go, and it was anticlimactic for me. Getting that book out of your head is more important than you think. And it's also a very anticlimactic experience. When it comes in the box, your family's like excited. And you're like, yeah, that's what it looks like. All right. I've been living for that for 10 years. um, I guess there's a couple things I was hoping to get, Sean. Number one was it was for me to explore and to improve myself, explore my own journey in Freemasonry by really deepening in. Number two is I hope I pass something on. I was up in a lodge up in Northern California. They didn't really know who I was, and they're reading the minutes. You know what this is? They're reading the minutes. And they did two things. The first thing is the secretary says, and they read the minutes from 100 years ago, which I thought was kind of a cool thing.
Oh,
And then he
interesting.
said, yeah, but read the minutes from 100 years ago. See what they were doing then. It probably has green beans on the menu that day too, also. But
I understand exactly. I get exactly what that means. Yes, yes. French. Cut.
That's right. But then he said, and the master read a chapter from the temple within for Masonic education. And so the way it's structured in these short chapters with questions for reflection at the end. It's because I don't bring the answers, I bring the questions. And so then they had a discussion on this chapter, and that's what I want to get out of it. I would like men to explore the nature of Freemasonry more deeply than a social club or a place to get away. There's all kinds of ways we do it. I'm more interested in the ritual. So there you go.
And it's interesting that you bring it up that way. Uh, this is completely sidebar from the book. Have you done any traveling of lodges outside of California?
Oh yeah, I sat in lodge in Jamaica, and that was awesome.
Oh, I'd say now I've never done international. I've done a
Yeah,
lot
we
of
sat in
like
lodge in
up and down the East
Jamaica.
Coast. What was it?
Yeah,
Now,
and
obviously within what you can tell, what we can speak about here. What was that like?
okay, okay, the Jamaica story is pretty funny. So I had a consulting gig. I actually wrote the anti-gang strategy for the whole country of Jamaica, and I lived there for about 6 months, maybe 9 months.
What?
I'd go for 10 weeks. Yeah, I'd go for 10 weeks, and I'd come home for 2 weeks. And so while I'm there, they got 16 Masonic lodges, and I was living in Kingston, so I went to the Masonic lodge, and I had my passport. And I was the junior warden of our lodge, I think at the time or something like that. And they turned me away, man. They go, "Hey, we don't know who you are. We're
They
not
didn't
going to
staff you or
qualify."
nothing?
I No, I said, "So what do I got to do?" And he goes, "Well, you need a letter from your grand secretary." So I went back and I got a letter from my grand secretary to the Grand Lodge of Scotland, to the Grand Lodge of the West Indies, and then
Wow.
I'm supposed to go back to Jamaica, and it's a Thursday. It's a Thursday evening, and I get a call from the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of the West Indies. Then he goes, "Well, we're going to let you come into lodge. We know who you are now." He goes, "But we're going to be doing a Mark Master degree. So if you're not a York Rite Mason, you're going to have to leave immediately." And I'm like, these bullies. I'm like, these bullies. I'm not a York Rite Mason. These bullies. So I start calling around. It turns out that I'm going to leave for Jamaica at midnight on an overnight on Saturday. And the commander is giving out the York Rite degrees that Saturday. And the
Oh, that's
secretary says, "Hey,
funny.
if you got $35 in a tuxedo, I'll write you a letter." So I went to, and I became a York Rite Mason. I got those 5 degrees. I got that letter, and I flew to Jamaica, sat in lodge in Jamaica. And lodge went from 7 at night to about 10:30 at night,
Oh,
and it
wow.
began. And then afterwards, we went downstairs, and there's no air conditioning, but we're all in tuxedos, about 100 men in tuxedos, and it starts with an 8-inch glass of rum, and we start
Really?
toasting. Oh yeah, and there's a whole curried goat and oxtail soup, and then we toast and we toast and we toast. I end up walking home in the like 3 o'clock in the morning downtown Kingston, Jamaica, in a tuxedo. And I think the only reason I didn't get mugged is people like, what is that? What is that?
Who's
And
this
a
white
car
guy
pulls
in
over.
downtown?
Car pulls over, and it's a doctor, a physician he's three sheets to the wind driving this Cadillac. He goes, "Come on, brother, get in the car." So he drives me back to my hotel. So that was my Jamaica. I was a wonder. They were
Wow,
wonderful once you got past. Once you got past the West Gate, they're real nice guys.
that is
But I've shot in Nevada,
incredible.
Arizona, Washington, Oregon, different places. Sure.
That's just so different because I mean I know being raised in North Carolina, there is no alcohol in that building. I can still remember when we were looking at like renting the hall space for like gatherings and stuff like that. And this was a long time ago, but somebody had asked a question about, you know, like a wedding reception, like, hey, and it was so clear. It was like, understand, there's no alcohol in this building. That's not happening. And it's funny you brought up York, right? Because I went. If you ever get a chance, I will make a absolute high recommendation to you. If you can ever find the time to go to North Carolina, and I'll write my own lodge. I haven't sat in there in a long time since I moved to New York, but I still pay my dues and stay in contact. Go do Scottish Rite.
Well, we're in North Carolina because that's where my family's from, and I've got a kid living in
Jacksonville,
North Carolina right now. So they live
Jacksonville.
in Wake Forest,
Okay, so
and
they're up in
everybody,
Tobacco Road.
and then in around Gastonia, there are in Charlottesville, there are, and I've been there. I go there once a year. There are graveyards that are filled with nothing but relatives. And so I went to the Grand Lodge of North Carolina, got a very nice tour, wrote a very nice article on some of the artifacts they have there. They have a whole World War I exhibit where the men made the tools. They artillery rounds came over and they took the expended ammunition and they made the working tools and they held
Wow,
lodge in the trenches. And so,
that's
yeah, no,
amazing.
I would love that. We'll have to exchange
Yes.
an email. And do you go to lodge where you currently live?
So when I moved, the short answer is no, here's been the most challenging part for me, and it's
Boo,
I know,
boo.
right? Well, here's the thing: being in North Carolina was easy. We didn't go dark. North Carolina doesn't go dark. Jacksonville never went dark. It's not even in our lexicon. And I bet you every weekend or every Thursday, was it Wednesday or Thursday? God, it's been so long. Was a meeting, whether it was stated or not. It was a meeting. Something was going on. Some reason we needed to meet. And and I always say that Jacksonville, North Carolina, probably fills more lodges throughout the country than any other lodge because you get young Marines, they come through, they do their thing, and then they get orders and they go somewhere else and they pay their dues and they demit to some other location. But when I got up here to New York, I'm outside of Troy, New York. When I got up here, I called the lodge so many times. I'm like, hey, when are you guys meeting? Oh, we're dark right now. I'm like, okay, well, let me know when you guys are back. Here's my information. I'd love to come and sit. It's always been the same thing. I've seen them close around here, but I will tell you, in if you get the chance, in New Bern, North Carolina, which is the birthplace of Pepsi, is where St. John's number one is.
Mhm.
And Yep. Did you freeze? Okay, I
Uh-huh.
thought you froze on me for a second. Is St. John's number one, and it's a 2 day thing for Scottish Rite, and at a minimum, you'll put on about 3 to 5 pounds eating because it is all good Southern cooking. At some point, something will be smothered in some gravy and fried, and it is absolutely amazing. And you go all the way to your 32nd. And as you're going through it, and I know this is sidebar talking about the book, but I will tell you, Raymond, it was probably one of the most enlightening personal experiences I've ever had. And New Bern's an interesting place because at one point in time, if you didn't know it, New Bern was the capital of North Carolina, where the governor lived at was in New Bern
Mhm.
before it ever was
I did
in
know that.
R- Raleigh or any of those places. So yeah, I I love it down there. It's the land of milk and honey. It's always made me happy in there.
So there's two. The difference between the Scottish Rite and the York Rite, there's actually two primary differences. I think the York Rite is a Christian centered organization, whereas the Scottish Rite is a non-sectarian. But this is the most fascinating difference. The York Rite is a structured extension of the first 3 degrees. And it's written that way, and it goes back to the whole Royal Arch degree and the whole history and there was a revolution in Freemasonry between 1720 and 1810, and a disagreement. That's why there's ancient accepted, free and accepted in our country. So the York Rite's extension. The Scottish Rite is not necessarily an extension. What it is it's explaining things, but not in a chronological order. So it's giving you different lessons that
Yes.
flow from within the same symbology, but not chronologically as the York Rite attempts to do or the American Rite. And then lastly, just to give you something unique, I actually go to lodge once a month in my home lodge where I was raised, a Master Mason, and it's the last true lunar lodge in California. We meet on or
I've never even
before
heard that
the
term.
Saturday of the full. Yes, well, there are 62 lunar lodges left in the United States that I know of. I did a whole research project on that. These are lodges that your lodge probably was a lunar lodge at one point. You met on or before the full of the moon because that way at night men could walk home in the dark and
Oh,
the moonlight would get them home. And so in California, Mariposa number 24 is the last one that meets on or before the full of the moon. Some Ohio has 12, and some of them meet on or before, on or after. Some don't have any anymore. Some states, but there's about 62 left. I actually queried 50 grand secretaries, 51 grand secretaries, and got myself in trouble doing that. But so I go to a lunar lodge. There's all kinds of these things about Freemasonry that are, I think, are fascinating that add to the flavor of everything.
absolutely. Well, even that little town of Jacksonville, and I've always thought this was interesting because it's a little town. It's a Marine Corps town. It's not like it's a huge place. There's, if you count them, if you don't count the Marines there, there's less than I think 20 or 25,000 people in the whole town. If you don't count the Marines that are there, and when I was there, 3 active lodges in that little town, active, not like there's one that meets the second Tuesday of every month, like nothing. I'm talking like active, moving, and then right above it was another one just outside of town. It was a very, very active community. See, I love talking to other brothers because you're telling me things that I had no idea that they existed. I had no idea. And you and I will talk about a couple things afterwards. I'm not going to talk about them here. If you want to know, folks, if you want to know, ask. That's all you got to do.
Sure.
Somebody will sit you down and tell you all about it, but it won't be me today.
So one of those degrees you did in Jackson, I actually go out to 29 Palms quite a bit because
Okay.
we have a relationship with the food pantry out there. We raise food for the food pantry on base there for the junior enlisted families. But there's also a lodge about 4 miles off base called the Oasis of Mara. And I was out there for a courtesy third degree for a Jacksonville Mason who'd been obligated and passed, and he was now at 29 Palms, and they were doing a courtesy degree. So that's kind of fascinating that that's getting done to these quasi-military lodges because of where they're located.
Hmm. Well, mine from talking to some of the gentlemen that have been there for since, as we jokingly say, Christ was a corporal. Uh, those guys, I remember what I'm telling me. He's like, when I got to this lodge, I was odd man out as a Marine, and he was a intel guy, Vietnam, Mr. Howard, and I remember him telling me I was odd man out. They were all farmers. Everybody in the lodge was farmers from around the area. They would come to lodge, and this was something that I had to learn was in Jacksonville at our lodge. If you came in a polo and a pair of khakis, you were fine. If you came in t-shirt and a pair of blue jeans, you were perfectly fine. No one questioned it at all. And then I remember getting ready to go to another lodge, and somebody being like, "Hey man, your suit fit good," and I'm like, "Suit for what?" And they were like,
No, we
We
were
wear a suit.
tuxedo
Yes,
lodge.
you're a tuxedo. Jacksonville, unless they've changed it over the years, you could show up in a in a blazer and a t-shirt if you wanted to. No one questioned it because we had guys that were literally farmers that would come in off of the fields on those days. Real quick here, folks, before you guys completely get lost in what Raymond and I are talking about. It is that last call. It is that last call, the local difference here. Before we get back to the show, let me ask you something. When you have the choice between something made by a giant corporation or something crafted by people who truly care, which one are you choosing? That's what makes New Scotland Spirits different. Every bottle handcrafted in upstate New York using locally sourced grains and committed to doing things the right way. It's not about making the most whiskey, it's about making the best whiskey they can. When you support New Scotland Spirits, you're not just buying a bottle, you're supporting local farmers, local craftsmanship, and a passion for creating something exceptional. So the next time you're looking for a whiskey that's as authentic as the people who make it, reach for New Scotland Spirits. Visit newscotlandspirits.com to find a bottle near you. New Scotland Spirits, crafted locally, enjoyed everywhere. All right, so that part's done. Bills are see, you got to keep these bills paid there, Raymond. Got to pay them. So I'm kind of curious, and on two sides. So if somebody wanted to say, either a lodge or somebody wanted you to come out and speak, how would they get a hold of you?
Well, the best thing is to go through the website, www.hitechcj.com, hitechcj.com. 25 years ago, when I founded my consulting company, it was High Tech Criminal Justice. So the website's morphed into an author website, hitechcj.com. For a long time, I went to brand my name. And if you ran Raymond E. Foster, you would get only me. The University of Scotland had a wiki page on me and everything. But then, you know what happened? Some dude named Raymond E. Foster, who is 2 years younger than I am, who is also the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, murdered a black woman in Tennessee. Yeah. So I'm like, I guess I'm not branding my name anymore. So Raymond E.
Yeah,
Foster.
no. Yeah, no. That's no.
if you like, you'll find the story and you'll see the two names compete now in the Google. I thought that was hilarious. So
Wow.
hitechcj.com is how you get a hold of me. Yeah, all kinds of weird stuff in life happens if we
Talk
watch
about it.
out.
Two extremes of the coin there.
Yeah, yeah,
Here's
I hope.
distinguished service, grand law or past master of a lodge and everything else, and then all of a sudden like that guy shows up. Holy crap, that's wild! And then you guys are close in age. And listen, folks, you made it when they've got your book on eBay. Your book's on eBay, right?
Is
And
it
people are
really?
selling. Because so I was looking. I googled your book because I'm like, you've got some Spotify shows, brother Raymond E. Foster, Temple Within. You got some second rate podcasts because it's not mine. That's just me. I mean, sport. This is the only one that matters. I love this one where they had you on G. Edward Martin and the Blueberry Daughters. That's an interesting one here. But yeah,
Well, you
I
know
clicked on.
who I'm very popular with. I've actually done 4 podcasts with witches, and a couple of podcasts with pagans,
Why?
I've got a running one with tarot card readers. Actually, the current tarot cards that are used in America were actually designed by 2 different Masons to
Really?
reflect Masonic symbol. Yeah. And if you look in the history of that, that's why people who read the book, The Temple Within, and then they've got their experience with learning the tarot cards, are going, well, these are the same things. I'm like, well, kind of, because the same concepts were written by the same people. Because I talk about transformation, and I point to the fact that our ritual is in many ways an incantation. It is in many ways, it will induce a flow state. It will induce a transcendental state. It can transform you. It has, anything that you don't understand is magic. So the witches love that. I mean,
I just was having this
the symbols.
conversation. So that old saying, one man's magic is another man's technology.
That's right. Yeah, and the symbols we have are a technology. They're an ancient technology to unlock the inner potential. The job of the temple within is to build the best version of yourself. And the best version of yourself self changes, especially as you get older. You're clearly not as physical as you were in the past, but you can still have that best version of yourself today. And so that's the point of the Temple Within, is teaching how to build the best version of yourself. Um, uh, an ongoing project with me. And I will also tell Masons, I don't consider myself a master Mason technically. And I'll tell you why. In the old operative Masons, when you were a fellow craft or a journeyman and you wanted to become a master Mason, what they required of you was for you to produce a piece of work to show you'd mastered the skills. And that was called your masterpiece. And so I asked, man, I go, if your job as a Freemason is inner development, personal development, is that your masterpiece? Are you complete?
Oh,
Is
that's
that the
beautiful.
complete? Is that the complete um, uh, Ashler? Are you done? And they're like, no. And I go, then why are are you a master mason or are you a fellow crafter? Are you on the journey? I think we're all on the journey, and someday maybe we become master masons. I don't know.
Brother, that's probably one of the most beautiful ways I've ever heard that put. Yes, you've earned the title, but have you truly made your masterpiece? Which you don't get to be a 33rd until then. I mean,
No,
that's such a beautiful way of putting it. I love that, dude. That's Raymond. You definitely own a thesaurus. There's no doubt in my mind about that. You own a thesaurus because you've already hit me with a few words here, and I think your next book should be almost a philosophy book here, Masonic
well,
philosophy.
the temple within is a philosophy book. It is.
Okay, that makes absolute sense here. But yeah, man, if you want to know, somebody's selling your book for $36.45 on
No,
eBay. I'm telling you
that's
right now. Let's hold on. Let's see if I can share this.
wait.
If I hold on, let me see if I can figure out how to do this.
Well, because
Let's
on
see.
Amazon, a hard copy is only $29.
Share share screen. Bum bum bum. Google share. All right, so it's gonna pop up. And I don't know if it's zoomed in enough, but here it is. Masonic lessons on integrity, patience, and spiritual growth invites readers into the symbolic heart of Freemasonry, where the building of a temple. $36.45 in stock, free delivery, 30 days returns. Right there.
Wow.
That's you.
Wow.
So somebody's getting a nice cut off your book, brother. And this I like. There's an
Wow.
audible version of it.
No, there's no audible version of it.
Somebody's got an audible. It says here, join us. Oh, this is somebody's podcast. Join us as we discuss the new books. This is somebody else's podcast.
Yeah.
I like
I've
great
done about
cover.
40 podcasts. Yes, isn't that
Yeah,
wonderful?
that is a great cover. I mean, I'm just putting it all out here for everybody to look at. See if I can get a bigger version of the cover for people to see.
Yeah, that's it. That's one of the things I did like about it. I did like the cover,
I like
like the
it.
whole
Like you
color
did.
scheme.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty cool. Like this is definitely eye catching. It's either somebody's going to think like if they don't. But here's the problem. I'm going to tell you the only thing I see here. If somebody doesn't read this, they're going to think it's another one of those. What were all those movies? National Treasure. They're going to think this is like in the National Treasure series. I'm going to tell you that now. Like at any minute,
And
somebody's going to read this
I
as an adventure book.
well, that's okay as long as they buy it. Somebody once said to me, uh, somebody said to me, I had a master of Valad say to me, he goes, I'm gonna read your book after the first year, and I go, I don't give a shit if you read it, but I'd like you to buy a copy. I don't make any money if you read it. Okay, you buy 4 copies and put them up on the shelf, be fine by me. I mean,
You
that's the
you can
truth of
keep
it.
you can keep coffee tables from leaning over for all I care. Just buy a couple
Hey,
copies of it.
buy buy them for gifts. I don't. So buy them. And I tell you what, and the other thing is that we get a lot of Facebook comments that's Luciferian and all that good stuff. And
Oh, I love those
so
idiots.
when I get those comments, I encourage people to buy copies and burn them.
Yeah, that's a great. Listen, if you're absolutely right, buy 2 copies. You might need extra kindling. Don't worry about it. I love those idiots.
Yeah,
There's nothing else. It's that is the true power of the internet right there. Is people that
yeah,
are like,
yeah. That's true.
don't you know? And I'm like, do you know you live in a? This is my favorite when I'm like, you live in a Masonic country, and they're like, what? No, I don't. I'm like, yeah, let me go ahead and break this one
Yes,
down
you
to
do.
you. And they're like, yeah, I don't think you realized that, did you? They're always a pain. So listen, folks, as we always say around here, if you're finding Raymond through me or me through Raymond, please take your time, like, share, follow, all those things. You got a LinkedIn if somebody wanted to reach out to you on LinkedIn there, Mr. Raymond? Oh, did we lose you for a second there? Oh,
So, but uh, just for a second, I think sometimes the internet way. Do you want a Masonic or a leadership lesson, or them tied together at the same time? Before we go,
well, you know what? I would probably let's take the tied in version.
okay. So here's the tied-in version of this. I spent some time thinking about this. I wrote a piece on this recently. Um, Somebody said a long time ago, and it's attributed to a Spanish philosopher, that if you chase butterflies, they will run away. But if you build a beautiful garden, the butterflies will come. And if they don't come, you'll still have a beautiful garden. So my point of that is that when it comes to leadership, if you work on your personal character and you work on your own value system, you may someday be called upon to make a great decision, and you'll be prepared for it. But if you're not, you will still have a great character. And so I think that the building your own beautiful garden and not chasing butterflies. And so this helps me to sometimes determine whether I'm trying to be right or add value, right? That's chasing butterflies is trying to be right, but building on my own character is adding value. So sometimes I choose to disengage and not be a party to something because I don't want to exercise chasing butterflies. I'm building a garden. So I think that's the great leadership lesson of both Freemasonry and for leaders in general is focus on yourself and be prepared. And if you don't have to use it, well, then you're a great shot, right?
That brother, you have imparted so much knowledge today and so many great things to think about. I love that. I probably will share that with my team tomorrow because I love that idea of, even if you don't get butterflies, you still got a beautiful garden. I love that idea. Listen, folks, as I always say, if you found Raymond through me or me through Raymond, make sure you go online, check out his book, make sure you buy at least 5 to 10 copies at a time. Uh, he's got grandchildren he needs to take care of. He's got all these important things. So make sure you're doing all this stuff for him. And if you found that you enjoy this, and you want to join us again, we do this every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Listen, our next week's guest is from Wilmington, North Carolina, or Raymond. So not too shabby. So next week we have internationally recognized positive psychologist Dr. Barbara Becker Holstein. She's continuing her mission to uplift and empower through storytelling and through the release of her two newest books, Women's Freedom: The Dawn of Possibilities, and Women's Freedom: Unleashed Love Stories, blending history, psychology, and deeply human storytelling. Dr. Holstein latest book work shines a light on the emotional journey of women navigating identity, independence, and self discovery during one of the most transformative periods in modern history. So, if you find that interesting, please make sure you join us next week to discuss that. Now, Raymond, I know I've done somewhere over like 300 and some episodes, and I know you took the time to binge every single one of these. You're completely inundated with everything about the above the bar culture, which is loose and free flowing here. All that being said, just in case you aren't prepared for this next question, at the end of every episode, the guest always gets the final word. So, on tonight's episode, what is our final word?
The Masonic lesson of the three steps. You're missing the point of it. You are the man in the middle, looking at who you were yesterday and who you're going to become tomorrow. Invest in yourself so that you're the person you want to be tomorrow.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool.
This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.